Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
The single best idea with a bonus explanation today. We're going to talk about what's going on in Europe, and we're going to talk about what's going on in America, this strange thing, uncertainty. And instead of diving right into the absolute brilliance of Katharine Neiss of PGIM out of London, I should say. She was in our studios in New York, and she's just absolutely definitive on the continent of Europe. A little bit of explanation. Europe, in the modern form, has a monetary union, the European Central Bank. It's like the Fed. It's not, but it is like the Fed. All agree that what is missing in Europe, much like a modern system, is some form of fiscal union. Mississippi and Michigan are on the same page. Finland and Spain are not on the same fiscal page. And with all that's going on, pushed by the Trump administration on Ukraine, with a needed budget expansion in Europe, they don't have the apparatus in place to affect whatever the fiscal outcome is. And that was the heat of the discussion today. I want to emphasize the Bloomberg coverage. The German yields did move out, price down, yield higher, but it wasn't in an inflammatory manner. The intra-Europe spreads did not move. This is critical. Germany, Italy didn't move. They all sort of lifted away from however you want to measure their yield, say against the United States yields. The press conference that Lagarde gave was absolutely fascinating and historic, back to her Jackson Hole speech of 2 years ago in my conversation with her at that time. Here now from PGIM, Katharine Neiss.
The issue for Europe is not the lack of money. The issue in Europe is not the lack of, general consensus about how these funds should be spent. The problem in Europe is there is no fiscal mechanism in place to allow this spending to happen. So what is so important about this signal that we're seeing from Germany is not just the size, but what it means for Europe working together, having leadership in its largest, most economically important economy in terms of going forward. And I think everything else, provided this is planned and executed, properly, there are risks clearly around doing big stuff. I think everything else is going to fall into line.
Katharine Neiss, Dr. Neiss, out of the University of British Columbia, working with PGIM, and just thank you, just brilliant today on the cacophony of Europe that's so foreign to so many of us here in America. The number one book I give to the kids is Against the Gods, Peter Bernstein, and it is a tour de force as we stagger from risk to uncertainty, and then in a more modern sense, this word ambiguity. I'm not going to go into the details right now, but all you need to know is risk is some form of measurable mystery. Uncertainty is basically not measurable. Uncertainty is something that we really can't get our hands on. For Constance Hunter, expert on this at EIU, the uncertainty now is a changing landscape. Just as I tape this, I see that the Secretary of Commerce says the president, quote, likely to defer tariffs on all USMCA goods. I would suggest that's a game changer. We'll let you decide after you listen to Single Best Idea. Here's Constance Hunter of EIU.
We don't know where we're going to land. And until that point, we have to come up with another way to ascertain the impact of all of this uncertainty on how households and businesses are going to behave. And one thing that we look at is an uncertainty index that has been extremely good at forecasting recessions. And it is presently not as high as it was right before the pandemic, but it is higher than the global financial crisis, the dot-com bubble bursting, and the S&L loan crisis, right? So we know that this level of uncertainty is going to eventually cause a pullback in household spending and corporate CapEx.
Constance Hunter with EIU there on the changing landscape. And let me tell you, it changes line by line in press release. As I tape this over 4 minutes, 39 seconds, the Dow has gone up almost 200 points off of one line item out of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Thank you for your support on your commutes across the nation. Special thank you to Apple CarPlay. The Bentley was in the garage today. My driver had Apple CarPlay. I thought that was a good and beautiful thing. Android Auto as well. And of course, we say thank you on YouTube, growing each and every day. Look to the wide set of podcasts. Joe Weisenthal and Tracy Alloway out with a superb podcast. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I think it's not out yet, I should say, but it'll be must listen for those interested in the equity markets. Subscribe to Bloomberg Podcasts. And we're on YouTube Podcasts. This is Single Best Idea.